Hello and welcome to the Road to the Garden podcast. It's Matt St. Jean here with Michael DeRosa once again. Today's Sunday, November 20th, and it's cold outside, Michael. We're getting to that time of year already.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it got
It's
cold in
like,
her. At least I'm not in Buffalo right now with the weather they got going on
oh
up
yeah,
there. Yeah, they have a Josh Allen's worth of snow in height, so I'm gonna stick
yeah. They
away.
showed
I'm gonna stay away from the upstate. Yeah,
they're like it's 6 feet of snow, and then someone tweets Devin Singletary's 5'8". It's like good luck.
yeah. Yeah, that I can see why they did not play that game up there this year.
Yeah,
This is our Road to the Garden Sunday morning show. We're going to be taking a look back at the week. We're not going to have a Wednesday night episode this week because of Thanksgiving, so we're going to just preview basically everything you're going to have over Thanksgiving. I wanted to remind you this podcast is presented by House Enterprise and it's part of the House of College Hoops site. Head over to our site house-enterprise.com for more info. And we've teamed up with SeatGeek this season to get you the best deals for tickets for your favorite teams. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, and they're here to give you some great deals. Get in on the fun and head over to SeatGeek, download the app, and use the code NCAA Hoops Digest for $20 off your first purchase. I have actually already used that code. I did it right off the bat, got some Pats Jets tickets a couple weeks ago. I can
ooh,
confirm it works.
and the Pats won that
Yeah.
game too. So
Yeah, it
good
was
for
not
you.
an entertaining game, but I was there for it. Yeah, so that code's at the bottom. Definitely go use that. Let's talk a little bit of hoops here. And this was a disappointing week here in the Big East as we look back at what happened. The Gavitt Games came and went. And the Friars picked up only 2 wins. They went 2-6. The 2 wins, DePaul at Minnesota, St. John's over Nebraska. What are your kind of initial takeaways here from what happened?
Yeah, so the Big East probably beat the two worst teams in the Big Ten. So the big takeaway is the conference's best win right now is DePaul beating Minnesota in Minnesota. That's the big takeaway. Just you need to pick it up this week. That's all you
Yeah.
can say. It was just a rough Gavitt Games, rough week. A couple games that should have went the Big East way. Like, I don't know. Let's think Georgetown playing Northwestern with one of the worst coaches in the country. They look terrible. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just pick it up now.
Yeah.
Now or never.
Yeah. For a little bit of context on this, all 4 of the new coaches to the Big East were in the Gavitt Games this year, and both of the second-year coaches there, Shaka Smart, Tony Stubblefield, were also in this. So it's almost all new coaches here. The only ones that have been around for a bit were Mike Anderson and your boy, Patrick Ewing.
Mm-hmm. Great coach.
So lots of new coaches there. A really weird year for the Gavitt Games, too. Because it's like, on one hand, it's disappointing for the Big East to lose this many matchups. But then you look on paper and it's like there's not a whole lot of games where you're like, oh man, that we really should have won that one. Like I think you can point to Georgetown Northwestern to a degree, but Xavier played a really good Indiana team. Nobody's gonna expect Villanova to win on the road at Michigan State. And those games were decided by those 2 were decided by 4 points. Like there were 2 made baskets away there from talking about the Big East splitting the Gavitt Games. Iowa, I think, is just a better team than Seton Hall. I don't think like that. Was Seton Hall favored for that one?
I believe they were
They
small
were?
favorites at close. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that one's a little bit disappointing. I think that they couldn't pick that up. But yeah, it was just I think a lot of weird matchups, and it felt like a lot of games where the Big Ten team was just like one rank higher in the conference than the Big East one, and you kind of got unlucky there.
Yeah, the 2 best teams in the Big East didn't play in the Gavitt Games. So there's no reason to panic yet because Creighton and UConn were just chilling on the sidelines, just whooping some poor low major teams. But wasn't a great showing for the conference.
No, not at all. And it's if you look back at the standings from last year, you know what's crazy? Only one of the top 4 Big East finishers from last year got scheduled for the Gavitt Games. Only 2 of the top 6 Big Ten finishers from last year got scheduled for them. All 10 teams between the 2 conferences that missed the NCAA tournament got scheduled.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah,
Woo!
yeah. So one of those years there, and it's just I don't know. Is there anything optimistic to take away from this?
DePaul looked great. That's the big
Yeah.
takeaway. They played great. They destroyed Minnesota. That game wasn't competitive. I think that's the big takeaway. And we'll get into what happened to Paul this weekend earlier, but I feel like when they're as injured as they are, you have to give them a pass. And I thought they looked. There was not a point in that game where I was watching. I'm like, oh, okay, Minnesota comes back now. No, DePaul beat them. They smoked them. And St. John's, I think we have to start talking about St. John's as a legit second half team. They're terrible in the first half. They look terrible against Nebraska. I think they had like
20
8 points.
points.
Yeah, against a bad Nebraska team. They did the same thing against Central Connecticut, and then they come out in the second half and they're just whooping teams. Like they won that half by like 9,000. It felt like. So that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, it was 20-point first half, 50-point second half. They scored 20 points through the first 20 minutes, and they scored more than 20 points in each of the next 10 minutes. You heard that? Yeah. So Joel Soriano there was one of our 2 co-players of the week. I thought he was fantastic. I think it was 17 points, 18 rebounds against Nebraska.
18 boards. Like, oh my God. That man, he came to play. That was impressive. He was my vote for player of the week.
And he's like, he's taken such a step forward this year too, which is impressive. It's crazy how good the centers are in the Big East this year too. Because it's like Kalkbrenner has now gone, I'm trying to remember now, I think 22 2-pointers in a row without missing. Adama Snogo is one of the best centers in the country and the preseason player of the year. You got Joel Soriano doing all this. Jack Dungy, who's a very, very good player in this conversation. And then that's just like the top 4. There's so much depth there. Manny Bates.
Thank you.
I love Manny Bates.
He's so good. But
yeah.
Adama Snogo can hit threes now. That should be illegal. But someone has to stop that. You have to stop. Stop. No, you can't do that. Stop.
Yeah, I don't know who let him do that.
No, but that's illegal.
We got to turn the sliders down on Adama Sinogo. Yeah. It's too powerful.
Yeah, like,
come on. No, St. John's though, Nebraska, that was a big win. That's what we wanted. There were one of the few teams here that had, I think, a really good week. They moved up in our power rankings because of that. Let's talk about Butler in that Penn State game. This is a weird week for Butler. It's just they can't shoot. They can shoot against bad teams. They can't shoot against good teams, it seems like.
They put it together because they shot like terrible in both exhibition games. No one else watched them. I was there. And then they shot terrible against New Orleans too. So there was that. Then they shot like shit against Penn. Am I allowed to cuss? Probably not. We'll ease up on that.
It's the internet.
Oh, perfect. They shot like shit against Penn State. And it's like, oh, come on. And then finally, like they put it together in the St. Francis game. Of course, I'm headed to the airport that day, so I missed most of it. And of course, they shoot well. Then in the game when I'm just chilling right here, they don't miss against the Citadel. It's like, oh my goodness. But if they can put it together like against Tennessee, who looked very vulnerable, it's like that's a big game. I mean, if they can start hitting shots, because like they were getting wide open shots, everyone was knocking them down. Jaden Taylor isn't 0 for 10 from the line from 3-point line now, which is good. Seamoss was hitting some tough shots. Eric Hunter hit like 2 or 3 threes. Miles Tate even had a couple. So everyone around was starting hitting shots. So that's if they can start hitting shots like consistently, like I'm say goodbye, like top 4 easy in the conference.
And that's kind of the struggle here for Butler. What do you do with them? This is a team that can clearly play at least good defense, and they have a lot of guys who can score. You just don't know if they're going to or not. It seems like it's so hit or miss, kind of dating back to last season too. They have 5 guys. If you're counting Seamoss in the backcourt, they have 5 guys in the backcourt who have scored at least 20 points in a game before.
Yeah.
But can you get any of them to do it consistently is kind of the issue here. And against Butler, none of them against Penn State, none of them showed up. And that's how you end up with a tough loss like that. And I think Butler dropped to 10th in our power rankings, which I think is kind of unfair to them. It's
ridiculous.
This is what happens. The problem here is they had a worse loss than what Marquette's ended up being at Purdue, I think. And DePaul had the best win of the Big East this year. And Providence is just starting ahead of Butler right now in these power rankings, and they got a little bit more of a name brand and a coach people like right now. So Butler ends up in 10th, kind of without doing a whole lot wrong there. I think depending on what happens to the battle for Atlantis, they can shoot up into the top 4 or 5 in the power rankings in a hurry.
I think part of it is probably no one's watched Butler's games against the St. Francis's of the world, so you don't see when they look great because, like, it's like, yeah, we were playing St. Francis. It's like, I'm not gonna tune into that, and they didn't play well against Penn State. That game, they didn't quit, and they kept it they made it close late, but Penn State, like, they tied it up at one point, then Penn State goes up to, like, 15, and it's like, "All right, this game's over," and then Butler just kept crawling back, and not enough
Yeah,
time, but, they looked flawless in the last 2 games, near flawless.
they
Like,
looked really good.
there isn't anything else I can say. It's like, they looked excellent, and 10th is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Marquette kept it close against Purdue because they hit some incredible shots in the first half. Then they just kind of dulled out. Butler's roster is much better than Marquette's. There has not been a single solitary second of Providence basketball that I've seen, and I've been like, you know what? That team should be ahead of Butler. We'll get to them later, but come on, team.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just a personal attack against me. There's no other way to put it. I feel like
yeah,
Tony
we
has
actually don't. We actually just this whole thing has actually been a bit, and we're just
it
messing
is.
with you.
I make a bit last week, and then everyone comes at me like, "Come on!" I mean, this is ridiculous. It's all about me.
But one positive note here for Butler in the computer metrics there, Ken Palm started the year at 130, which I thought was ridiculous at the time. They're all the way up to 87 now. So with 43 spots up, one of the biggest risers out there. And again, they're going to get opportunities to keep on moving up. I think you can call it a moral victory against Penn State. They moved up 5 in the computer rankings after that one. So, I mean, it's good stuff there. If we want to talk about the Big East as a whole here, too, for a second, again, because you mentioned the toughness they had at Penn State, I thought the whole team showed that. Butler could have kind of caved in against Penn State, didn't, hung tough. Marquette could have against Purdue, and they really, there was just a lid on the basket over the last couple minutes in that game for them. They had a lead for 28 minutes against Purdue and then just got ice cold and still found a way to make it a 5-point game at the end there. Like they couple more bounces go their way at the end of that. Marquette's going to win that game at Purdue, which is crazy. Xavier was really just in a back and forth game with Indiana, and that they came back late and made it interesting. Villanova made that interesting against Michigan State when they really didn't have any right to. Those 4 performances off the top of my head were the ones that were like, wow, like that's nice to bounce, to really like hang in there and come back and prove that you can play with these teams. I think that's kind of the positive takeaway. The Big East proved that they can play with good teams. Now they got to prove they can beat good teams.
Yeah. Yeah, that Marquette performance, I mean, you know a Shaka Smart team's never going to quit, aside from, like, the end of his tenure at Texas, but, like, that was a match made in hell. Though, I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
other than that,
so
these
bad.
teams, I mean, you know Marquette's not going to quit. That's a horrible matchup for Marquette. They got no one to go up against Zach Edey. That is a
It's Osa
nightmare matchup.
It's the 6'9" Osa Ighodaro against the 7'4" Zach Edey.
Yeah, and they made him work. Zach, you were having to work to get your buckets. He scored, but they made him work. So I was pretty
Yeah, it was
impressed with
impressive.
Marquette in that game, all things considered. They look good.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look much better than where I had them preseason. They look legit.
Yeah, this is well. That's why, like, I had Marquette 9th in my preseason rankings, but I didn't feel, or maybe I had him 8th. I didn't feel good about it though, because I was just I don't like counting this group out, and I have faith in Shaka Smart, and he doesn't have like the most talented group on paper, but it's clear he has a goal in mind with the guys he puts out there, and they work well together. Like, this team, Tyler Kolek is a wizard with the basketball. By the way, this dude's like getting like 10 assists like cake. It's crazy. I think it's also worth noting for the Gavitt Games how banged up the Big East is, and we're gonna talk about DePaul here in a second too, with how banged up they are. Missing 3 starters now. You've got Butler out there without Ali. You've got Marquette's missing Zach Reitzel right now. I know he had his knee scoped a couple weeks ago. I think a couple months ago. He's still working his way back from that, trying to get on the court. We all know Villanova is missed. Its 2 top guys there. Xavier was missing Colby Jones. He came back for the Indiana game. I don't know how full strength he is. And Seton Hall without Alexis Yetna. So, I mean, you look at basically in all of these losses, the Big East team that lost is banged up with a serious role player and or starter, not at 100% or not out there. And you add that context, and you add in the fact that the team was 6 points away from tying up the Gavitt Games, and all right, you feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, it's week 1 and week 2. You got time. This is a huge week for the conference. So win a couple of games here. We take any sort of like, maybe I guess panic's not the right term, but any sort of like negativity, and it's just gone. There are
Yeah.
a couple teams where it's like, all right, we got to get on your head. But other than that, it's like we're calm.
Yeah, and
There's
we can
really
talk about one of them. We can talk about one of them here. We're going to talk about the multi-team events that started at the end of this week. There's 3 of them. Georgetown went into the half, up 10 against Loyola Marymount and ended up losing by 18, if I have that correct.
That seems about right.
Yeah, I mean, Georgetown's 11th in our power rankings, would be lower if they could be. Man, like, how long is the leash here?
What should happen is you play LaSalle later. Patrick Ewing, win or lose, should get on, like, you get on the mic if ideally they win. And he goes, all right, we're here with the winning coach, Patrick Ewing. And he goes, I quit this job. Takes off the headphones, throws them at the ground, and just leaves. What a joke. Just what a joke. I mean, offense, there's no system. It's just ISO ball. It's primo ISO, Brandon Murray ISO, Jay Heath ISO. Hope it goes well. Defense, of course, it doesn't exist. It's Patrick Ewing led team. And there are times where the guys they'll just walk up the court. And old Ewing, he got on Marcus Derrickson for taking a fadeaway. He just doesn't give a shit now. They're just sitting there. And they're like, crap. Well, they got to play 40 minutes. They don't care anymore. They got to run into the ground. It's like, awesome. Yeah, good coach in there. He just doesn't care anymore. When he doesn't care, the administration doesn't care. Why should a fan care? Like, there's no reason for anyone to care about this team. They are terrible. They are a joke. They're an insult to the conference. If you could demote them to the NEC, they might even be lower than that. I don't know if they'd win the NEC. They look that bad. And that roster is top 5 talent. There is certainly something wrong with that head man. He should leave. And you even missed like a good head coaching cycle. Dennis Gates is going to do work at Missouri. He was my guy. I don't know. If it was me, I'd can him today and look at Coach Moten at NCCU. That man, he represents everything Georgetown's supposed to represent. He isn't coach at a high level, and they haven't won a lot of games in a couple of years, but that man look at his Wikipedia page. That man represents everything the Big East is supposed to represent. Get that man in there.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. The Georgetown team should never be like this.
No!
According to KenPom, Georgetown has the 287th hardest schedule, so one of the easier schedules so far in all of college basketball. Their point differential right now at the end of regulation, +4. That's not good enough. Yep, and it's all that Green Bay game because they're tied with Coppin State, and it's just I'm not confident in this team being able to beat anybody inside the top like 150 on KenPom right now. Like that's the bar where it's like, all right, they're not going to be favored in this, which is again where this program has gotten to. That's bad. They play LaSalle today. LaSalle team that hung tough against Villanova in the opener. That's at noon. That'll be right after our show, and if they lose that one, like I don't know if Georgetown's actually going to consider firing Patrick Ewing during the season. If they're going to, if that is on a possibility here, if you lose to LaSalle, I feel like it has to happen then. A 2-3 start to the season with a almost loss to Coppin State in the opener. Like if that isn't grounds for a coaching change, then what are we doing here?
It's so sad. I'm looking at the LaSalle roster and I'm like, these guys could beat Georgetown. Good point guard, good guard play in general. You have the Drame twins from St. Peter's. It's like, well, this roster isn't bad. You have a couple local kids from DC too, I remember watching in high school. It's like, well, Fran Dunphy's a better coach than Patrick Ewing, believe it or not. I mean, there's not a single game Patrick Ewing will go into and I'm like, I think he has a coaching advantage. But Fran Dunphy knows what he's doing. He's old, but he knows what he's doing. So they could legitimately lose this LaSalle game. And Villanova beat him pretty comfortably.
It was comfortable, but LaSalle made it more interesting at the end than people expected, which is like, all right, this is not a bad LaSalle team. They're not a great team, but I mean, KenPom has Georgetown as a 3-point favorite for this one, which even seems a little bit generous to me. That's I don't even know what to do with this Georgetown team right now.
They're terrible. Like 20th in our power ranking, Georgetown Hoyas.
Yeah, this is the worst they've been. And this is we look at where the conference stacks up in KenPom. All the other 10 teams in the Big East are in the top 90. Georgetown's at 131 as of us recording this. That seems about right.
That seems too high.
Well, it seems about right that they are that far away from the other teams.
Loyola Marymount's lower. Loyola Marymount's better. This Charleston team is better, 142. So we're like, let's
Yeah.
keep digging down. Minnesota probably about the same level. Pepperdine looks
Yeah.
better than Georgetown. Chattanooga, they have a completely new roster. One of their players isn't allowed to play from one of the stupidest rules. They're probably better than Georgetown. Troy, probably better than Georgetown. If LaSalle win, I mean, there's a legitimate argument you can make Georgetown not in the top 200 Ken Palm. They're terrible. They
Yeah,
are horrible.
and we're gonna find out exactly how bad they are as the schedule kind of keeps ticking along here. They get American and UMBC. That's this week. So
Yeah.
those are both home games. Talent-wise, they should kill both of them. So if they don't, then we're gonna see what happens there. They were not the only Big East team to lose their multi-team event opener, though. DePaul and Providence both lost. DePaul lost to Santa Clara, and they were down 3 starters for that one. Providence lost to Miami. Which one of these do you want to dig into first?
I think we can start with DePaul because I think DePaul, there is a very legitimate argument to be like, you get a pass.
Yeah.
Like, I'll dig it right now. You're without 3 starters. And they're going to
Santa Clara is a good team. That is
underrated, really underrated.
Yeah, Santa Clara team went to the NIT last year. They've won 20-plus games in their last 2 full seasons. They had an abbreviated year due to COVID in 2020, 21. But they've kind of quietly put together a decent program out there on the WCC. So this is, I fully give DePaul a pass for that loss. They also looked tough in it. They hung in. You'd like to see win it, but if you're going to be down that many key players, there's only so much you can do.
And I'm not even gonna try to say his name. Brandon, the guard for Santa Clara, he looks like a pro. He looks like a first-round pick. They had Jalen Williams last year, first-round pick. This kid, he looks like a first-round pick. He looks incredible. He's had like 4 incredible games. He looks like a stud. So you get a pass, DePaul. There's nothing bad I can say about DePaul in that game. You kept it competitive against a team that is legit good.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And this is, a DePaul team that's like, if they finish this year with over 500 for the season and top 100 in Ken Palm and play in the postseason at all, like this is a successful season for DePaul. Like you're not if you make it the NCAA tournament, that's amazing, but that's not really the aspiration here. The aspiration here is to be better than last season. They just look way better. Like they're making the most of what they have on the floor in a way that they didn't do 2 years ago. And Stubblefield looks like to be improving things there, which is good. I'm liking what I'm seeing there. Yeah.
Respect.
When that's all you wanted from DePaul this year. If you know that he's the guy, then you move forward and build on what you've got. Makes me wonder what DePaul would be with David Jones right now. Yeah. We're talking about this team differently if they have David Jones. I'll tell you.
100%.
Yeah.
They win that game with David Jones, obviously.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Providence now. Mohegan Sun in basically a semi-home game against Miami came out, scored 15 points in the first 7.5 minutes, and then just the entire offense dried up. Stopped moving off the ball. It was all ISO stuff, and they could not stay in front of Miami on defense either. Ed Cooley pointed this stat out after the game. I think Miami had 7 assists on 27 baskets. So basically like a quarter of their baskets had an assist. So Miami was just playing all ISO ball and beating Providence. And that can't happen with the caliber of athletes that the Friars have on the defensive end. This team is just not ready. Yeah, it's a lot of new players, but this has not come together yet. The chemistry is not there.
Miami won every segment of that game. They were the better outside shooting team. They were the better athletes. They killed them on the glass. They were the better defensive team. Miami looked better in every aspect. Granted, very good Miami team. I think they're legit. Like they're shilling out all that money, NIL money in the transfer portal. Proves itself. Chad Omier looked incredible. So
he's really good. He had a double there and 14 offensive rebounds for Miami. And I think this was the big question. Providence looked really, really good this week against Stonehill. Obviously, that's a very low-level opponent. But the question in my eyes was like, all right, yeah, Clifton Moore was giving you a really good performance in that one. You saw Devin Carter looked good. Bryce Hopkins looked good in that one. It was like, all right, this is a situation where all of those guys are better athletes than the guy in the other end of the court. How do they look when the guy's just as good as them? I thought Clifton Moore had a really rough game, especially on defense. And he still had 2 blocks, but he was just not affecting shots the way you'd like him to. And it's like, all right, this is a guy who struggled at Indiana, transferred to, I believe, LaSalle, and now is at Providence. And it's like, all right, he looks kind of like the guy that struggled at Indiana. And we're 4 games in. So let's see. They play St. Louis later today. Let's see how those guys adjust. But I have concerns about this Friars team and the way that these guys are going to play together and just how you get offense and defense on the floor at the same time with these guys, because it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of players that are good at both ends of the floor.
Yeah. Yesterday, you see Bryce Hopkins was 6 of 8. No one else on the rest of the team except for Alan Breed was over 50% from the field, and he was 2 of 4.
Yep.
So they just
Yep.
didn't look good. And that's a very, very good Miami team. That's a tough test to pass. And they play a SLU team who looked awful against Maryland, but they're legit good. I believe they beat Memphis. That's a really good Memphis squad. There's no way that SLU team looks that bad 2 days in a row. I think SLU beats Providence pretty comfortably.
And that's where this is going to be a really tough matchup, because both of these teams are going to be looking to bounce back. And I think it's pretty easy to argue that SLU is just the better team anyway. So if they're both looking to bounce back, this gets really, really tough for the Friars. You mentioned Bryce Hopkins there, the only guy 6 of 8 from the field who's hitting field goals. The issue's there: 6 made field goals, 6 turnovers.
Yep.
And that's where it's like, all right, you can't do anything without making a mistake somewhere. And it's kind of in all aspects, which is good and bad at the same time. It's bad that you're messing up in a lot of different ways. It's good that you're messing up in a lot of different ways, because it means you can clean things up more easily. It feels like they're making a lot of one-off mistakes in a lot of ways too. So we know with Ed Cooley, you don't really judge the team until February anyway. That's when it always comes together. But not looking too hot at the moment. I think my other concern is Jared Bynum, who is not shooting the ball very well from deep too. This is a guy who's supposed to be first team All Big East, and he's just not really found his shot this year. We'll see if that comes. I have faith that it will to a degree, but he was a 58% shooter from deep in February last year, and that was not sustainable. Outside of that last year, it was like a 30% shooter from deep. And if he's your second best shooter at 30% from deep, then this team's going to have some issues, because they're not going to be able to score from the outside.
Yeah, I'm not going to panic on this team. I thought Miami is a near top 25 team. I think St. Louis is a top 25 team. So you have to take it a little easy, because I don't think Providence is a top 25 team. And they're going to get better as the season goes on. Still a lot of new faces. Yeah. They looked good in the beginning of that game and then just kind of collapsed. But there's still – I'm not going to panic on this team yet. There's no reason to in my mind.
And the Friars can end up 10-3 heading into conference play here pretty easily. I mean, they got their 3 tough games, one against Miami, St. Louis, and at TCU. We'll see how tough that actually ends up being. But outside of those, this schedule is pretty easy. So they can be 10-3 heading into Big East play and get a little bit more time to work on themselves. After this SLU game, they have a pair of home games against teams outside the top 300 in Ken Palm. So a little bit. We'll see what we're made of. Let's talk positives here. We've done a lot of negatives here for the Big East. We got 3 teams went undefeated this week. We talked about St. John's already beating Nebraska there. Creighton and UConn, they haven't played anybody, but they have looked as good as you could expect, as good as you could hope for from a team that hasn't played anybody.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. They look great. I mean, Adama Sanogo shooting 3 should still be illegal. Someone has to stop that. There needs to be just someone run on the floor and just say, stop. Like you're Herb Dean. This is over. You can't do that. That's illegal.
It really is unfair. UConn's been remarkably consistent too. Their point totals in these games, 85, 86, 84, 86. They're basically scoring the same amount of points every single game. And they've been doing that while banged up a little bit too. They just got Andre Jackson back. He looked amazing. Alex Karaban is at a point now where it's like he's the leader for Big East freshman of the year right now, with Cam Whitmore on the sidelines. Like, he's been incredible. And obviously we haven't seen a good test for either one of these teams yet. So we don't know where on the spectrum from very good to elite these teams are, but they're at least very good. These are clearly two ranked teams. I was shocked that UConn was not ranked in the initial AP poll either. I was shocked UConn did not get any first place votes from the Big East. I thought UConn was clearly a better team than Xavier.
Yeah, I would have agreed there. I thought UConn much better than Xavier. And Jordan Hawkins, I mean, didn't look great his freshman year, but oh my goodness, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. He's going to be a stud, and it's probably this season. I think he had 20 or 22, something like that the other day. That man can play. He's really, really good. And I feel like people are going to start realizing this week when they go into the PK 85 and they're just going to light someone up.
Yeah, and you got Tristan Newton there with a triple-double this week. Because I forgot to mention when we were talking about Xavier before, Zach Freemantle had a triple-double earlier this week, too. Two Big East players with triple-doubles on the same day. I don't know when the last time that happened is. So round of applause for those guys. Yeah, this is just an incredibly deep UConn team. They can do a lot. And Creighton looks as good as expected. Frederick King has been good for them, too, in his limited minutes. Like they go 8 deep. They have 8 guys they can play. The starters are as good as you would expect. I was a little bit worried about how the bench would look when you're just depleting some guys and you got turnover. The bench looks fine. So we'll see. They got Texas Tech this week. That is our game of the week. These two teams look really, really freaking good.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's like Creighton plays a bad half against St. Thomas, and it's like, oh my God, they're bad. Everyone was right who said they were bad. And then they just look like incredible the next 3 games. So it's like, yeah, they're fine. They're really good.
Yeah. And Creighton is a plus 92 in its last 3 games. That's what you should do when you're playing bad teams. So this is what we're going to get real tests coming up soon, but they're, again, like I said, they're doing what they should do against teams that aren't very good.
Yeah, and they're playing a decent Texas Tech squad. Actually, more than decent. That's an insult to Mark Adams. That's a really solid squad. But I think
we got that next up here. Let's talk about this. Let's look ahead here. We'll switch paces and we'll look forward now. Creighton. This is our game of the week against Texas Tech. This is tomorrow, Monday. Well, a 2:30 afternoon game there in the Maui Invitational. This is one of those where you're going to block off your calendar at work and just sit back and watch this game and hope some emails don't come in. It's a slow week in the work world, with Thanksgiving. So I'm excited for this one because Texas Tech is a very, very, very good team. They got Daniel Bacho there, big man, going against Ryan Cochran. That's the matchup I want to see.
It's a really good Texas Tech squad, and they defend at an elite level, as they always. Mark Adams, excellent defensive mind. If you get a game against Texas Tech, they're going to defend, and you are going to have to work offensively. Except the thing with this new Creighton squad is they can also defend. They can. They're like good on the defensive end. Usually when you're playing a Creighton team, it's like, all right, you had Dougie McBuckets launching threes from like half court, and they always go in. But you also can just score pretty easily. This team is legit defensively. So I expect this to be like a really nip and tuck, like legit competitive game. But Creighton just has more weapons. Like Kevin O'Banner, Davion Harmon are your 2 leading scorers for Texas Tech. Other than that, it's like, where are they going to find scoring? Versus with Creighton, you got like 8 guys who could put up like 20. And you're just like, oh, yep, that happened again. So
and if Creighton is the legit top 10 team that they are right now, and we think they should be, then this is one of those games where you're going to take an early lead at some point and then just kind of hold Texas Tech at arm's length. It'll be competitive. It'll be close, but you should maintain a lead for most of it and control it. And I think Creighton is more than capable of doing that.
And let's say you win that game. You are playing Arkansas, because if you lose, you're playing Louisville. And it's just like, all right, this Louisville team basically.
Yeah, Louisville might be the only team more disappointing than Georgetown this year.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Maybe throw Florida State in that conversation.
They've lost 3 games by 1 point. It's like, poor Louisville. It's like,
Louisville, they got a home loss to Bellarmine, a home loss to Wright State, and a home loss to Appalachian State. Maybe they're due for some good luck here against Arkansas, but this is, you look at the field for this tournament. If Creighton's able to get some wins here, they'll play Texas Tech. They should then play a ranked Arkansas team there in the second game. And then in the third round, potential opponents, Ohio State, San Diego State, Arizona, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been disappointing this year. Any of the other 3 give you a really good opponent. And I mean, if they played Tech, Arkansas, and Arizona, that's probably mean, that'll boost your strength of schedule. And if you go through and win those, like you've earned this win, and Creighton will end up being a top 5 team in the country if they do that, I think. And
100%.
that sets up a top 5 battle with Texas the week after. That is fun.
Yeah, they're good. Creighton's good, and I feel like they're going to prove it this week. They're legit.
Yeah, I agree there. I 100% agree. And this should be a fun event too, because Creighton, Arkansas is just like the athletes that you would see in that game if that happens. Assuming that if that happens because both teams win, that'll be at 8 p.m. Tuesday night on ESPN. You can find the game tomorrow against Texas Tech on ESPN too, by the way. And then any round 3 game for Creighton will end up being on Wednesday there. So this will wrap up right before Thanksgiving. This is the tournament you're going to watch while you're prepping and packing to go see your family for the holiday. We got there's a pair of tournaments early in the week too that are these 4-team events, these short ones. I want to start with Marquette because I really like the one they're in. I misspelled that there. It's the Rocket Mortgage tip-off. Let me adjust that there. Not the Rock Mortgage. The Rocket Mortgage tip-off for Marquette. They play Mississippi State in the first round of this, which is not a bad Mississippi State team. And with what Marquette was able to do against Purdue, if they can put together a solid performance, they can beat Mississippi State, and then it's a Utah or Georgia Tech on the other side. They'd be favored in that one. Whoever wins the first game is going to be favored against the winner of that one. Marquette could win this event, and that would be really nice for them after a moral victory, but real loss against Purdue.
Yeah, in my opinion, in this tournament, the best 2 teams are playing each other on day 1. Marquette, Mississippi State are the 2 best teams. That I wouldn't say that's like the championship game, but it's the de facto championship game. Mississippi State's good. They're really good, but Marquette can stay competitive and beat them. If Tyler Kolek is dishing the ball out like he is capable of, if he's able to get in the lane and just make everybody work, they can win that game. They look good. I fully expect Utah to beat Georgia Tech. I think they're just better, and I like Coach Smith, but Marquette can beat any of these teams. They can.
They absolutely can.
They looked excellent against Purdue. It's like you put on that performance in these 2 games, you're winning. And people are going to be like, oh, Marquette, maybe rank them. It's like, maybe that's a little far, but they're good. They're good.
Might receive a couple of votes, and they'd firmly be in that like 7 to 10 seed range at that point with the resume that they'd have. So just outside the rankings. This is a Mississippi State team, by the way, 27th in KenPom. Purdue is 24. So comparable there. This one's on a neutral floor there. I believe this is somewhere in Florida, if I'm remembering correctly. I forget where this event is. But yeah, this will be 8:30 Monday night on FS1. So a little late night tip off there. This is in Fort Myers. That's where they play this one. So that should be a good one. There's another event even later tomorrow night, and that's going to be the Empire Classic with St. John's. Oh, by the way, on Marquette, their next game will be on Wednesday. That is a Monday-Wednesday tournament. So they'll get a day off there. St. John's in the Empire Classic, a chance here to conquer another borough of New York. This one's over there at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. They're going to get Temple, and then either Syracuse or Richmond in the second game. I'm rooting for a St. John's-Syracuse matchup here.
It is against my genes to root for Syracuse to win any event ever, so I will not be rooting for Syracuse to beat Richmond. And I think St. John's beats Temple, but
they should. Hey, we saw Temple already beat Villanova this year.
Yeah, Temple is one of those teams that's just like you're awesome or you're terrible in just some of these games. Like up 15 at Wagner, blowing a late lead, then you beat Villanova, then you lose to Vanderbilt, you get it. That's a good team. That's fine. And then you barely beat a Rutgers team without their 2 best players. So it's like, all right,
weird.
What are we looking at here? What still is this Temple team? I feel like this is one of those games. Temple probably goes up at halftime. Because St. John's can't do anything in the first half. St. John's makes a run in the second half, and it's competitive, but I think St. John's pulls away in the end. I got
I kind of agree there.
Battle. I'm chilling.
Yeah, and St. John's should be the best team in this event too. Should be basically home games for them. I don't know if these are going to count as Does Ken Palm count these as semi-home? No, it does not. These are semi-home games. It's in the same city as far as I'm concerned. So I mean, you should get fans there, and I don't know, it should be a fun little event. If St. John's is able to win this, that's really nice for them. That's suddenly you're looking at a 6-0 start to the season with wins over teams that you should beat if this team is as good as people think it is. And I don't know if St. John's will be ranked after that. I don't know if they have the quality of wins to be ranked after that, but they're going to get a little bit more buzz than they have been getting. They're going to be in a nice spot in our power rankings after that. I can tell you that much. These games, first one's going to tip at 9:30 Monday night. That'll be on ESPN News. I believe the second game is going to be on ESPN2 regardless. That one will also be Wednesday night, I think, against Syracuse or Richmond, 7 or 9:30. Let me double check that here. These schedules get incredibly confusing. Let me tell you that much. Trying to put it all together. No, the second night of this is Tuesday night, not Wednesday. So that's a quick turnaround there.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to get
that's another tournament where I think the two best teams play game one.
Yeah, and that's why St. John's and Marquette are in nice positions here, where it's like, all right, if they win the first night, they should win the event. And you get a little hardware to take home, and a little confidence boost early, and add something to your resume. It's nice. Let's talk about your team next here. We got Butler. Battle for Atlantis. That's going to start against Tennessee later this week. That'll be on Wednesday, 7:30 that night on ESPN2. Game 2 would be against USC or BYU. And round 3, they could face Kansas, they could face NC State, Dayton, or Wisconsin. What's your read on this going into it?
So the Tennessee is legit. They looked pretty bad against Colorado, but that's a good team. In a perfect world, I'll have an article up where I look into like some Tennessee tape and see what like some takeaways there. A perfect world, I should have the time for it, so we'll see there. But Tennessee's good. Like they're really, really good. So you could lose that game, and it happens. Then game 2, you go up against BYU, who's looked pretty bad, or USC, who neither team looks great. I think Butler probably should beat both of them. I don't know if they'll be favored in either, but I think they should beat both of them. And then in the last game, potentially, 3 of those 4 teams are first-round picks. Deron Holmes, first-round pick. Kansas, it's Kansas. They have like 8 first-round picks probably. And Terquavion Smith.
They paid good money for those first-round picks too.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bill Self knows what he's doing. And Terquavion Smith at NC State would have been a first-round pick if he just chose to go in the draft. He's like, nah, you know what? I'm coming back. So you're going against a legit team regardless. You are going to play a tough team. And Wisconsin, if you play Wisconsin, I mean, they're so Wisconsin every year. It's just like, that's Wisconsin for you. So, but I think Butler's going to make a statement in this tournament. They've looked good in their games, aside from a bad game against Penn State, who I think is a top 20 team in the country. If they can hit shots like they have, like they had a bad shooting game against Virginia Tech and almost won that game. That Penn State team was legit in my mind. I think they're a top. I think they're one of the most underrated teams in the country. And it comes down to Jalen Pickett is the most underrated guard in the country. He's so good.
Yeah.
He just controls that game. And yeah, exactly. He is incredible. But I think Butler can make a statement in this tournament. I think they're better than their numbers say, and I think they will prove that in this tournament.
Yeah, and this is Ken Palm says Butler is the worst of these 8 teams. I don't think the eye test matches that. That's where, and it's again, is heavily preseason metrics are heavily skewing the numbers right now. I think you need to get 10, 15 games in before those come out with the Ken Palm stuff. Butler's looked good. Again, it's a matter of if they hit shots. If this Butler team hits shots, I think they can play with anybody in the country, just about. If they don't, they could lose to just about anybody, and that's how inconsistent the guard play has been there. So just got to put that all together. They can beat Tennessee. Tennessee is number 6 in the country in Ken Palm right now. This is a very, very good opponent. They've had their ups and downs, but this is a very good Tennessee team. And I think Butler can give them a game. I think Butler can prove itself here, even with a 1-2 record in this event, with some close games and stuff. You'd like to see them win more than that, especially against teams like Dayton, Wisconsin, BYU or USC. I think they should be able to beat either one of them in the second game there. You need at least one win from this event.
And I'm very confident saying they're going to get at least one win. Tennessee looked very vulnerable in the game against Colorado, who's another one of those teams, Jekyll and Hyde. But you hit shots against Tennessee, you can win that game. Tennessee still has trouble scoring. So
Yeah.
you can beat Tennessee and keep that game competitive. Good by me. Play USC BYU the next day. You can beat both of those teams. You probably should, and I think you do. And then game 3,
And you
just
see what happens.
whoever you play well, and you could win that
Yeah.
game too. 2-1 after this tournament. That's a win in my book.
Yeah. I would agree. So that first game, 7:30 on Wednesday night, that will be on ESPN2. Game 2 will be either 1:30 or 6:30 on Thanksgiving. 1:30 with a win, 6:30 with a loss. These are times in the Eastern time zone here.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be ESPN2 or 3, and then they can play it a whole basically any time during the day on Black Friday there. Let's talk about Seton Hall's tournament. We're gonna save the best for last with PK85. Seton Hall is in the ESPN Events Invitational, which I think also has a really interesting field. There's a lot of good events this year. Seton Hall starts with a game against Memphis on Thanksgiving, 7:30 p.m. That'll be in ESPN News. They're gonna play Oklahoma or Nebraska on Friday, and then they'll play on Sunday. So that's looking way ahead there. Could be Florida State, Siena, Ole Miss, or Stanford. Should Seton Hall get through Memphis, there's a very real argument that they're the best team in this event. There should be one of the 3 best with how like Florida State has looked this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Florida State doesn't look good. Stanford has not looked good either. Memphis, I would pick to be the best team in this tournament, but it's also Memphis. They do that thing all the time where it's like, oh yeah, Memphis, incredible roster. Then it's like Memphis, they fell apart. But they've played 2 games this season, and they've played 2 tough teams. You go at Vanderbilt and win the win of the day 1. Then day 2, you play a really good St. Louis team in their house. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see a lot out of Memphis today against VCU. That's another good team, by the way. Memphis has been tested down this road, but they're a good team. I think if Seton Hall plays tough enough, you can outman this Memphis team. But DeAndre Williams, Kendrick Davis are 2 incredible players. Aside from those
Yeah, it's a
2,
tough
that
game.
roster opens up. Like, those 2 beat you. They beat you. They're 2 of the top 30 players in the country-ish. That might be a little generous, but like around that range. And then after that, Seton Hall, if you beat that Memphis team, Oklahoma lost day 1 to it wasn't day 1. They lost to Pine Bluff, I believe. If not, Pine Bluff kept it close. That's a team you can beat. Nebraska, you should kill. And then any of those teams game day 3. Florida State, you should beat. Siena, you should beat. Ole Miss. Ole Miss, I don't know anything about Ole Miss. I'm not going to pretend I do. Stanford's overrated as shit. They're not good. Yeah, so. Seton Hall could, again, that's another Big East team that has a chance to make a statement, and I think does.
Yeah, and I think Seton Hall's in a position here where you can lose the opener, and then if you do, you should probably win the next 2, and you're in a good spot where, all right, you're not like a ranked team, but you're beating other teams that could be tournament teams. You're basically beating a couple bubble teams there, knocking teams out or getting some big conference wins. And it's like, all right, it's not nothing that's going to look fantastic on the resume, but just the incremental stuff that'll fill out the middle of the resume. That's also very, very important when you get to March. Let's talk PK85 now. This is the big event this week. And 3 Big East teams in it, which is only possible because UConn signed on to be in this when they were in the American Conference. So Nova and UConn can play each other in the championship of this event, which is very fun. Nova can also get Michigan State again in the 3rd round of this, depending on how things go. This starts on Thanksgiving. Schedule for this as Thursday, Friday, Sunday. I'll add a caveat here for UConn because this threw me for a loop. I was trying to read the brackets to figure out what was going on. If UConn loses on Thursday, their next game will be at midnight on Friday. Well, it'll be 9 p.m. This is in Portland. So it'll be 9 p.m. local time. So midnight. So it's technically a Saturday game for UConn if they lose round 1. I'll run through the matchups here really quick. Villanova's the first team to go. They get Iowa State at 3:30. They'll play either North Carolina or Portland in the 2nd round. Xavier is in the so Villanova's in the Phil Knight Invitational side. Xavier is in the Phil Knight Legacy side. They start at 5:30 on Thursday. They'll play Florida in the 1st round, and then Duke or Oregon State in the 2nd. And their 3rd round includes Purdue, West Virginia, Portland State, and Gonzaga. And then UConn is the last team to go on here. They play Oregon at 8 p.m. on Thursday. They'll get either Alabama or Michigan State in the second round, and then they're in the same group there as Villanova. So they'll play whoever comes out of the Villanova side of that bracket, depending on how the results go there. These are three very interesting first round games. I don't know which one you want to start with of the three.
I want to start with UConn because you mentioned how that game, if they lose, they start at midnight. That game's going to start later than midnight. It's just how these tournaments work. So you're probably
Oh
getting
yeah,
a 12:25 tip. So like
might be up till 3 a.m. with some basketball.
I'll be up for that entire game. I'm
Yes.
enough of a loser to say I will be. But that Oregon UConn game, oh, that's a good game. Oregon
It's
lost to
juicy.
some, yeah. Oregon got smoked by I believe it was UC Irvine. Like they just I beat them off the floor.
Yeah.
And if you play
Lost
UConn,
by
like you play
13.
UC Irvine, that's getting ugly quick.
Yeah, and
UConn,
Oregon plays Houston today at home too. So one more game there. So Oregon might come into this with some bruises, but still, this is a very good Oregon team. This will be the first test UConn gets this season. This is basically a road game too.
Will Richardson is a legit guard. He has not played that well this season, but he is legit. Fally Dante, big, physical big man. That's Barthay. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. I believe he's a Colorado transfer or something like that. I've seen that name before, so I know he's good too. Like that's a decent squad for Oregon.
Yeah.
They're going to keep this UConn game competitive, but again, this is another chance for a Big East team to make a statement. UConn can beat this team bad and make a statement. If they play UConn, like, first of all, they're playing Houston. If you play Houston like you played UC Irvine, say goodbye. Just leave at halftime. You're going to be down so big, and Houston's that good. If you do the same thing, going from Houston to playing UConn might be one of the worst stretches in, like, just like physicality-wise you could possibly have.
You're going to be so bruised after that.
Oh, yeah, you are not going to be having a good time. You're going to be needing some ice baths and then some. But, again, I think UConn should beat Oregon. I think they're better. And I think they're going to make a statement. It's like, yeah, you were going to have to deal with Adama Sanogo, and it's like, all right, you do that. Tristan Newton, triple-double. He's a stud. Jordan Hawkins, stud. If Andre Jackson's fully healthy, that man's going to dunk on someone, and he's going to make someone look really, really bad. And it's just like, we need to go against Houston finally with like a top 5 talent in I forget what their 5-star's name is. It'll come to me in a second. I'll feel like an idiot. And then you have to go against UConn with some of these guys. It's like, oh, mercy. It's like, say goodbye. Jerace Walker, that's his name. I'm smart.
Yeah. Houston's got a really good team over there. Oregon was projected to finish 3rd in the Pac-12 this year, and their coaches poll just behind UCLA and Arizona out there. This is one of those where if UConn is a top 25 team, which I think the Huskies are, you should do to Oregon what we were saying Creighton should do to Texas Tech. You should control the game and win. It'll be close. It'll be physical. It'll be tough, but it should be your game the whole way through. I think they're more than capable of that. And then that sets up some really interesting second round matchups for them as well. I think UConn against Michigan State would be a really, really fun game. Another tough physical one. So I hope we get that just from an entertainment perspective there. Let's stay with the Philly Invitational here on the other side and look at Villanova. This has been not the start people expected for Villanova to this season. Now they go against an Iowa State team with a kind of somewhat familiar coach over there in TJ Otzelberger coming from the Greg McDermott tree. So a little bit of almost a conference preview there. You'll get some familiar stuff. This is a good Iowa State team, a very good Iowa State team. This is no sure thing for Villanova to win this one. They play like they did against Michigan State. I think they win, but they actually need to put together another one of these really good performances.
Yeah, this Iowa State, that's a team that made the Sweet 16 last year. You bring in 2 St. Bonaventure transfers in Jaron Holmes and Oshun Oshuniyi. Those are 2 legit talents. Those are 2 guys who, like, Jaron Holmes is averaging 18 a game. Oshun Oshuniyi is averaging 13. And somehow he's only averaging 3 rebounds. I don't know how. That he is a force inside. He is a good matchup for Eric Dixon because he's able to play inside and out. He's quick. And if you go inside on him, he's going to block some shots. And Otzelberger, great coach. They defend at a really high level. They were the most surprising team in the country in my mind last season. They're going to bring it out of Nova. You were going to have to beat them. This is going to be an ugly, low-scoring, competitive game, but I think Nova can pull away in the end. But it's going to be a good game. Very good game. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I agree. Round 2 gets rough for them because if they are able to get through Iowa State, they're almost certainly going to get North Carolina on the other side. And I can tell you, due to no faults in Villanova, UNC would be favored in that one and should probably win comfortably just with how good UNC is on paper. And we'll see how that would actually play itself out. But that's a game where you'd probably lose, and there's no shame at all in losing it. Yeah. Which again, that puts Villanova in a really weird position, record and resume wise, that early in the season. And then round 3, if they don't get UConn or Michigan State, it'll either be Oregon or Alabama, which is, man, that's just, you're running a gauntlet there.
I'm going to say a take that, James Madison could beat UNC today. That James Madison team is incredible. James Madison, they are putting up they're averaging over 100 points a game. That team has 10 guys who can go out there and get 20 points, and you're just not shocked. I'm very, very glad. I don't think they play a Big East team. That is a mid-major team that I'm scared of right now. They're good.
Yeah.
They're could give UNC trouble.
Ken Palm at this point. Yeah. Yeah, this is
and James if UNC loses to James Madison, which that'd be out there, there is no way they're coming into this tournament and going oh, we can take this one easy. We got Villanova. We can take this one easy. Nah. They're going to come out there and try to make a statement. So,
and UNC gets Portland State there in the first round. So UNC is currently the number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that ends up looking tomorrow when the rankings actually come out. But yeah, and even there's a big disparity between where UNC is in the computers and where they are in the AP. And we'll see how that resolves itself. Villanova could beat this team. I will say that if they put it together, we'll see what happens there. Let's wrap this up by looking at the legacy side of things with Xavier, because I think that Xavier-Florida game is a sneaky pick for game of the week. I don't think it got any votes in our stuff, which is a shame because that's a really good game. I like the timing too. At 5:30 on Thanksgiving, that is prime. I just finished my Thanksgiving dinner. I'm about to fall asleep and I want to throw something on, and the Lions are already losing. So we're going to throw on college basketball. That's prime territory for that game to put this on and get a good one.
Yeah, Detroit. Yeah, but yeah, this is a high level game. Florida has looked incredible in stretches in some of these games. Todd Golden is a great coach down there, and this is a new look Xavier squad. If Colby Jones is fully healthy, I don't know if he looked 100% in that Indiana game, but he still played his ass off. But we got a game. This is a game. This is going to be fun.
Ken Palm has this as basically a true 50-50. Florida's at 34 in the rankings. Xavier's at 37. It's on a neutral floor. This is a flip a coin. And I think that this is one of those, it's I don't know, it feels like a second weekend matchup in March Madness. This feels like a 4 versus 5 type game.
Alex Fudge for Florida had one of the craziest poster dunks I think I've ever seen. It was filthy.
Yeah, that was something else. And I think they went on a 35-5 run against Florida State.
Yeah,
Florida did.
It's
yeah.
Yes, that's how long good Florida team. Another Bonnie's transfer, who I love. Colin Castleton's averaging Colin Castleton versus Zach Fremantle or Jack Nungy is maybe the individual matchup of the week. Those are
and Fremantle
excellent things.
And I talked about this in the Power Rankings article today. What Zach Fremantle has done this year is incredibly impressive. This is a guy who preseason first team last year, battles injury, can't put everything together, gets suspended this fall under the new head coach, and then has just come out looking lights out. Colby Jones is the best player on Xavier right now. Zach Fremantle's the second best, and if he plays like this all season, he might end up on the first team all conference at the end of this year. He looks fantastic. I'm hyped for him that he's putting it all together in the way people thought he would last year, and that makes Xavier a very dynamic team when you got two guys in the front court in Jones and Fremantle who can play make. I was the way they play, it's almost like Colby Jones is the point guard. And then you have Sule Boom and Adam Kunkel as your shooters. And you're going to have Nungy and Fremantle as two really forwards the way they play. And neither one of them is a true center despite the height there of Nungy. And it's really interesting. I like what they can do.
Yeah, I think my big question entering the season for Xavier was, do they have a leader and can someone step up? And if Colby Jones can be that guy, they're dangerous. They're really, really dangerous. But that
And he
Fremantle,
has been for a lot of the season.
yeah, he has been. And if he can do it in this game, they're going. That's a very, very high level game. I'm very excited for that game. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
my game of the week, but it's flying under the radar, and I feel like lock in.
it's a
You should
sneaky
realize
game.
like this is a good game.
Yeah, Colby Jones, as of this morning, is third in the Big East in assists per game right now. So that's what they needed from him. You talked about needing a leader. That is what they needed from Colby Jones this year. Obviously, he can rebound and he can score, but you lose Paul Scruggs, you lose Dwan Odom, and you need that next guy. It's noon here, so that Georgetown LaSalle game is about to tip off. I think we're probably going to wrap up. We'll finish up this Full Net Legacy real quick. Xavier will play Duke or Oregon State in the second game. If they beat Florida, they should probably get Duke. That's how that should go. Oregon State would probably be a cakewalk for them. And then Purdue, West Virginia, Portland State, Gonzaga. I don't see a world where they play Portland State. I think Xavier, Purdue, West Virginia, Gonzaga, any of those opponents gives you a really interesting game for Xavier and a chance for another nice like second or even third weekend with Gonzaga type matchup in that event out there.
That's gonna this run for Xavier is going to be electric. If you can win that first game, you are going to play 3 incredibly exciting games. So I am, woo,
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun week for the Musketeers.
Yeah, and there's going to be 4 teams that are playing next Sunday in the Big East, all in the last games of these tournaments. So we're going to have a show for you next Sunday morning where we're at that point, we're going to know how these teams have looked for the first 2 games of this tournament. We're going to be able to preview those championship games or third round games or whatever they end up being there. Should be a lot of fun. We got a couple Big East games on the docket for today too. We'll preview it. Georgetown and LaSalle, I believe, just tipped off there. Seton Hall Wagner is at 3. Providence St. Louis at around 3:30. DePaul Oklahoma State. That is a very interesting game later on. And Delaware State at UConn. So that's the way things look for the rest of today. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us wherever you are watching and or listening to this to stay up to date with our content. Like I said earlier, we will not have a show on Wednesday this week. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, everybody. I'll outro with one last question for you, Michael. Here, I don't know if you saw, we had our power rankings of food for Thanksgiving. We had, I think, was it stuffing? Like stuffing was nearly a universal, got nearly unanimous first place there. I voted for it for first. I was surprised to see it at the top there.
I got some Thanksgiving takes. We'll start off with this one, and this might be the last thing I say. Thanksgiving might be the most overrated holiday out there. The best part about it is the sports.
See, I'm going to hard disagree with you because the food, like, if you cook the food well, it's easy to mess up Thanksgiving food, especially the turkey. Turkey is not my favorite meat. But if you do it well, it's my favorite holiday because it's an excuse to just eat a lot of really good food and then fall asleep and watch sports.
But here's the take. There is a reason we don't eat this food during the year because it's not that good. Give me burgers, dogs, brisket. Oh my goodness. That would be.
So okay. So let me put you on to something here. I got to shout out my dad for this one. We got a smoker and we smoked turkey a couple years ago. Game changer.
Okay, that sounds A1. I'll give Thanksgiving. Yes. That sounds A1. That sounds legit. Yeah. I'll give Thanksgiving that, but the rest overrated.
Yeah. It's smoked turkey with mashed potatoes, gravy, stuffing. That is where it's at. I'm not a big turkey guy, but you put all that together, that's where it's
bland. It's not a good meat. It's blander than bland. It tastes like nothing.
It's just worse chicken.
It's not good. Turkeys. Thanksgiving overrated.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, well, we can just wrap it up there. That's Michael DeRosa. I am Matt St. Jean. We are going to see you next Sunday. Check out the content on the site, and thanks for watching and or listening.